You're looking at a brand new Traxxas TRX-4 2021 Bronco without a scratch on it, ready to build. So this one I will be building in the background while I'm working on some other build series. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing to it. I've been thinking about it. I'm ordering a few parts, but I wanted to get a weigh in here just to see what the baseline is. So that'll be easy to remember. 3333, no battery, 50-50 side to side, 5347. So that's the start point. Other than a few vinyls that I've got on there, the 4x4 at the rear, and then the of course the hood vinyl, which I'm not going to consider that adding to the weight. But other than that, this is bone stock right now. So we'll see how this progresses, and I'm just going to film as I build here and there and then put it all together and create a build series. Alright, first little thing I wanted to do here was ditch this bumper piece and winch that sticks out. So I ordered up this micro servo winch mount and D-ring mount from DSM. So they give you some D-ring mounts that just screw in place from behind where this guy screwed in, and then you remove the Traxxas fair lead, and they give you a little template so you know where to drill the holes, and then you know where to make the slot for the winch. You can't really see in there because it's dark, but that's cut out for a future winch. And then the mount just screws in right there from the back. They give you two longer screws on each side so you don't reuse those. And then they give you the 4 little servo screw mounts. So that's all prepped and ready for a winch in the future, and a lot more low profile, better approach angle. So I'll get that back on there and see what it looks like. Alright, I figured we'd just continue with some more body detailing and take care of these hinge stickers. I've got some Cchand rear window plastic hinges that look like they blindside screw on from the back. So I'm going to have to, I guess, make a little template here to mount those. So we'll get those thrown on there and move forward. Okay, got one mounted on. And I didn't make a template, I ended up just taping them over the sticker, getting them vertical if the sticker was crooked. And then I could fit this little pin vise through there to make a mark on the sticker. And then I could pull them off and use the reamer to barely open up the hole, and then go ahead and thread these through from the outside, and then I'll pull them out and then screw them in from the inside, and that's what it looks like. And these hinges are nice. They have a curvature at the top, so they kind of curve to the top of the roof. So they fit really well, so add a little bit of scale realism to it. Well, I think those look pretty good. It's the little touches that make all the difference. So we're going to add one more little touch here with the third brake light from Cchand. So it does not come with an LED strand, but you got a nice lens here, and then this is set up for like a wireway to route down this leg here. So I will get to an LED for that when I get to lighting for this. So for now, we're just going to install that piece and move on. Alright, get the lens screwed in. And then the third screw is an LED retainer screw from the back side. So I get this guy all ready to mount. Looks pretty good. It's a snug fit with that stock tire. I don't know if you could go any larger. And you definitely need some kind of hex spacer to get it off of the body. But it works great with the stock tire. And one other thing I forgot to mention when we started these hinges is I put on some more vinyl since last time. The side vinyl is from Club 5. The Bronco vinyl on the hood is off of eBay. But I think that just dresses it up. Man, that looks great. So I don't know what's next, but I think we're done here. Well, I think it's time to move off of the body and onto the chassis. So I think on this build, as you can see, I decided to try some Samix parts. So these will be the first time I've used Samix really in this capacity. So I've got the full front portal set and C-arms with rotors there. And then I've got heavyweight outers and rotors. So I'm gonna switch those heavyweights to the front and take those outer brass to the rear and use with these aluminum carriers and that inner portal housing that's aluminum. So I'll have less weight on the back, more on the front. And then I've got my link and I guess shock mount, and I've got this upgraded Protek 370Tbl Servo, and then this adjustable servo mount that should adjust over the holes a little bit for this servo. So that'll be 533 ounce inches at 6 volts, and I think 600 peak at 6 volts. So that's what it's going to be running at for now. No BEC in this yet. And then I've got some extended hexes here. These are 8 millimeters in case there's some clearance issue with these rotors. Don't know if I'll need them or not, but I really like these brake rotors. Those are going to look super scale, you know, seeing those through the rim. So I think this is going to add some low unsprung weight, and then we're going to beef up the steering to compensate for some of that extra weight. So I think I'm going to jump in on the chassis. That gunmetal looks great, and the reason I chose that for the Bronco is because of the diff covers and of course the shackles. So I figured I might as well go with kind of a gunmetal gray theme. So before I get the second one on, I'll just show you the stock versus the Samix. So the Samix, you can see, is slotted on each side, so they're symmetrical, where the stock are handed. So there's a slot on one side, and then the other one is the opposite side. So that's really the only difference that I can tell, minus one being aluminum. So anyways, gonna get that matching one on there. All right, so you can see I've got the portal pulled off the carrier. So if you've never done it, it's 2 through bolts and it pulls right off. Super easy. So I've got the Samix aluminum carrier, and they are handed. You can see it's left, and it's got 2 shock mount positions on the side. So it's similar to the front C-arm carriers. So you can move this shock that's typically mounted to the side of the rear links with that long screw. You can move it up to the carrier in either one of these positions. So that's what this third shorter screw is. And this fourth one was a mystery at first, but that's actually to replace the link mount screw to one that's a little bit shorter, since you're not going to mount the shock there. And then of course the aluminum inner and the brass outer, and those fit together perfectly. And then you can see that rotor mounts to the face of this with 3 screws. Easy enough. And then I'm going to use some Loctite on the metal and some waterproof grease for all my gears once I get them transferred over. So I'm going to get this axle done on each side, and then we'll jump up here and tear into this front axle. All right, both sides on, and man, that gunmetal looks good. Those rotors. All right, so the next thing to do is get some wheels on the back, at least show you what the rotors look like. But so far I'm impressed with the Samix. No fitment issues. Everything went on great. That gunmetal finish looks really good. So we'll see if the fronts go as smoothly. So let's get some wheels on. Here we go. Looks pretty sweet. Get a little caliper view. So that's it for the rear. Alright, I've got the, at least the left side front pieces out. And wow, that's a big outer portal, but it fits in the wheel. What's sweet is this disc brake is a big brake for the front, so it's larger than this rear, so that's nice. Glad I swapped this up to the front. And then this does have the side shock mounts as well. And then here's the two link mounts, and this grabs, I guess, the panhard. So I'm gonna jump in and get this stuff on, and hopefully it's as smooth as the rear. Just want to mention one thing. Earlier I said that these link mounts are symmetrical. They're not. As you can see, I had to rob this one off the back. I had two of the same on the back, so you can see here, that's the one that came off. So it's got a conical edge on the inside, and this one has it on the outside. The conical piece on this Samix is actually threaded. This piece is not. So in this case, the conical edge on the front has to be to the inside to be able to fit right there. You cannot put it the opposite way, and you should have the graphic outward. So they're almost symmetrical, but they do have that conical piece that should be inward, that contains the threads, and that'd be the same on the back. You want that inward piece to be the conical side that's threaded. So just something to know, not have to take something off like I did. One thing to note on these knuckles, you can see I've got these three screws pulled out. They're the bearing retainer on the back side of this portal. You reuse the hardware for all this stuff pretty much, but this inner front did come with a little screw. So I was wondering what that was, or you know, it came with two of them obviously, but one per side. So it's the same 1.5 millimeter that these are. It's just a little shorter, and it ends up, you use it in this bottom retainer hole, that's single, and that's just because it's not as deep, because there's a bearing seat right behind it, whereas these don't have that, so they're the same as the OEM screws. So one of these you won't reuse, you'll sub this guy in. So just something to know, don't force it, stock one in there, you'll strip it out. Alright, axle is complete, fully functional. Had no issues, really impressed with the Samix products. The bearings fit in there great. I only had two holes that were a little snug, and I just backed the screw out, made sure it was straight, and they all ended up threading in. But just really good fitment overall, good fit and finish. And then I've got, you know, all my screws mounted in where they need to go in preparation for shocks and links. But I think since this whole front end is out, and I'm anticipating having to spread the frame to put in the servo mount and this new servo, it makes sense to potentially just leave this off, this front end for now, and let's jump to that, and then we'll get this reinstalled, get the wheels back on. Well, I had to show you the big brake. That is so sweet. Okay, on to pertinent business. So the Protek 370Tbl Servo. So this thing was a Black Friday special, I believe at A-Main. Just a great deal, so I picked this up. and it's a lot of servo. So you can see the specs there. So 6 volts, 533 ounce inches, and at the dynamic peak at 6 volts, we're looking at 600 ounce inches. So without a BEC, that's what it's going to be running at right now. So that's going to be a lot of power, and we may power that up more later. So I think I may end up needing an extension, which I've got plenty of servo extensions. We'll see if I can make that to the Traxxas box. But looking at this, it looks like we're going to have to remove the bumper, and then of course the servo brace screws, and then most likely these, and probably loosen those, maybe loosen that, and that hopefully will give us enough frame spread to get that guy out. But I was looking at this brace, and they've, you know, purposely machined out this notch, and I was like, what is that for? And all I can figure is they clearanced for this servo horn at full throw. That's got to be what it is, because it kind of gets over the edge there on the stock tray. Maybe this one's deeper, so they had to bring it back down. But anyways, I'm going to dig into this and see if we can get this guy seated in. Okay, this looks like progress. Got the servo sitting in there. So I just wanted to clue you in on a few little installation notes for this servo bracket. You can see here the mount screw for this adjustable piece is covered by the frame. So what you need to do is, you know, I had to take out, you know, these 4 screws in the bumper, and of course the fenders just come off when these are out. And then I loosened, I think, 3 more down the sides, and I had to take off the sliders to get to those. So that gave me enough give to spread the frame and get this in. So then once it was in, you know, I went ahead and put these screws in to kind of get it aligned, but left everything else loose. Then I could just drop this in, loosen this screw up just a hair, make sure these were all aligned, put the screws in, and basically screw this in without Loctite. Then I could pull the frame out a little bit, Loctite that guy in so it's in the correct position. So then take this out, and then I snugged everything in, so we're good to go. This guy is where it needs to be. And then the other issue I've been having is trying to fit this Traxxas metal arm onto this Protek servo, and they're both 25 tooth splines, but my god, it is super tight on this, and I keep checking it to see, make sure I'm not crushing anything, and it looks like it's getting scraped a little. But I checked this against a couple of the servos. I checked another 25 tooth on this, and it was fine. This fit every other servo. So either this servo gear is a little big, or this might be just a little small, but not sure if I'm gonna order a clamp style. That would kind of hold me up a little bit, or I may play with this a little more and try maybe screwing it down. I was just getting nervous threading it, you know, crushing it on there. I just didn't want to screw up this nice servo. So anyways, that's kind of where I am now. The bracket was smooth. Now it's just me figuring out the servo horn and then plugging it back up, centering it, and we're good to go. Good news, got the servo horn seated. Got it all centered up. So yeah, just ease that screw down on there and it seated the horn. It's just a super tight fit. You can't press it on by hand. So I got that Loctited in. So in the meantime, I put on the bumper and the fenders, cinched everything up. So now I'm gonna run a little extension out of my box to plug in the servo since it won't reach, get it installed, and then we can hang that front axle and put the wheels on. All right, got this thing in. And one thing that will make it much easier is taking this brace out to be able to access these screws, at least the back ones.
vertically, since this is going into metal. You really can't come at that at an angle unless you have a ball tip driver. But 2 screws and that brace comes out. So those are thread locked in, that's secure. And then I've got it routed and the slack taken up here. And then I used a 3-inch extension, servo extension, to get to the port. The servo almost made it, but just not quite. And then I had some of this on hand from my Blazer Pro Scale Light kit, this silicone grease. So they typically want you to put it across the wireway here where they exit. So I added some of that in. So that's all wrapped up there. So now it's just getting this axle hung and wheels on. All right, servo's in. It's fully functional. I did run into a little snag at the very last bolt, putting in the front axle. So I've got the whole front axle hung. The last thing to hook up is the drag link. So I go to hook it up and I realize my servo horn was on the wrong side. So I had to pull out the servo, pull off the horn, flip it, flip the servo, and remount the servo. Then I could attach that drag link bar. So now you can see that the cord's coming out of this side and routing back and down. So not much of a change except getting that servo oriented correctly. I guess when it was upside down and maybe as I was talking on camera, I just wasn't thinking what I was doing and flipped that servo around. But other than that, it went off without a hitch. So I think it looks really good. Those big brakes look sweet on the front end. And then you can see the rears a little smaller, which would be about accurate. So let's see. I think I ended up with a little bit of a rake on the whole stance here. I mounted both of the shocks in their upper hole position on the C-arm and then on this carrier. And for the front, it looked like it was about level with the link, and this upper one is actually taller. But I thought that might even out the stance just because these shocks angle out. You can see them here, they angle out so much that you're losing some length. That if they had just gone right here, you'd get a little more travel. But I may end up moving those to the this lower position to bring that axle back up, bring the chassis back down, and just get a lower stance overall. But let me get the body on there and you can judge for yourself. All right, body mounted, finished look here. You can see what I was talking about with that little bit of a rake to the front nose. So I could either lower those rear shocks to that lower position on the carrier arm. I could play with the preload on the front to raise that nose as well. But I'm not unhappy with the look. I don't think it looks bad. I'll just have to see how it performs. Let me know what you think. So I think that wraps up the aluminum and brass additions to the chassis. We got the servo in, so I'm not sure what's next. We'll find out shortly. All right, I think we're gonna continue with a little more scale detail. I've got these pretty sweet little mud flaps here. They come with their own little hardware, kind of built-in washers, and then a non-nylock nut. So I have to use a little Loctite, but those look pretty simple. So we'll get those guys thrown on here and see what that looks like. All right, a little more Bronco badging on the mud flaps. So those guys went on pretty easy. I did double check the website to see how they mount, but the brackets, they don't mount under the plastic fender points, they mount over the top, so you can see that. So you don't have to trim your fender or anything. And then I've got the wheel clocked here. I mounted the mud flap towards the wheel, and I mounted the nuts all, you know, on the back side. So if the wheel rubs, it's rubbing the mud flap and it's rubbing the panhead screw. You can see there. So I've got the screws pointed backwards. And then once I got them in, I just kind of had to bend the brackets just a hair. Just really close clearance there at the bumper. And then I just bent these a little bit to get them perpendicular onto the slider and the body edge. But all the mud flaps are symmetrical, they're the same. So there's no longer rear or shorter front, they all match. Of course you get two of one side and two of another, but I may have to pull this left one, see if I can align it a little better straight. That one's not bad, but overall, for the cost of these, they were like 10 bucks on AliExpress. I'm not sure, like AJRC maybe the brand, something like that, but you'll be able to find them. You just have to wait a little while to get them shipped. But I think that wraps the mud flaps up. So we'll see what's next. Well, I decided, since I purchased these +3 hexes, I guess they're 8s overall, I'm going to go ahead and try to install those and see if we're good on the lock-to-lock steering and compression on the front, and if so, I'm going to run them, get a little WIDETRACK. So let me pop those on and see if we're good. Alright, +3mm WIDETRACK, nothing too extreme. The only thing that I really don't like is you do lose a little bit of thread engagement here on your lock nuts. Whereas before the thread was sticking out the end, but they feel secure, so we'll see. If I swap rims at some point, I may pull these off depending on the offset, but I think for now we'll run this WIDETRACK. So got one more little item I was thinking about before ending this session, so we may look at that. Well, this is what I was building to and looking forward to, is this Hobby Wing Axe R2. It's a 550 can motor, 3300 kV brushless system with the FOC. Really nice system. What is going to stop me from putting that in is I want to confirm that that is going to work with the Traxxas Pro Scale LED kit for this. I definitely want to get the lights in, and Traxxas is currently sold out, so I think I'm going to wait on this, do a little more research into making sure everything can work together. And then I've also got one other item here I think I'm going to hold on. These are some pillar lights or ditch lights from Club 5 that will mount right up here on either side of the windshield A-pillars. So these you have to assemble. They do come with LEDs and everything. So I think, just like the rear tail light, I'm just going to not install these right now and wire them up all at once with the lighting system. So I think at this point we'll just do a weigh-in and see where we ended up this build session. All right, here's our final weigh-in here, 3875 with a 5545. So I'll put up on the screen what we started at. I believe it was 3333. But that is not bad. We added some front bias weight, we added some low down weight, and a few little scale details. So not sure what is next, but I think this is a good end to stage 1. Let me flip this over to ounces for a quick reference. 136.7 ounces. So I think that will conclude this stage 1 build for now, and hopefully we'll have some pro scale lighting coming soon, and a whole new brushless system as well. I will do a little more investigating, make sure I can get that stuff to play nicely together. I want all my light modes to work when I do get those installed. So anyways, let me know what you think in the comments about stage 1, and stay tuned for more.